long of a distance, you need to have good form and good mechanics. And it's about finding a super easy, gentle running pace that you can run all day and all night for 4 days. You don't go out and run hard. You would never finish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I was thinking about that the other day. You were actually, I'm still pondering the idea, but you had posted something about no one's you had just something to the effect of you had registered for this next Moab 240 solo, and it's like, man, I don't I don't know if I could do that running 4 days solo, but
Yeah, I don't know if I can do it either. I really don't. Even having finished it, my hands, I'm a nervous person. You can probably tell I'm nervous right now, but I'm a very nervous, anxious person. And when I signed up for that race to do it alone, my hands were just shaking as I hit sign up. And that's how a lot of running has been for me, is just confronting fears, facing fears, and just trying to lean into that and sitting with it, and not being held back from it. But there's a lot of fear of doing that alone, even having completed it once.
yeah, definitely. A lot of, I would definitely be anxious and have fear going into that alone.
Yeah.
And yeah, you had posted something about having registered for that, doing it solo, and I'm like, in my mind, first thing in my mind was, holy crap, I cannot picture running 240 miles alone. I
Right.
mean, granted, there's going to be other people out there running, but it's like, you know, you're essentially your own running team. It's
Yeah,
like, ah,
it's funny. I myself am kind of sitting with it and thinking through it too, having signed up again. And the thing I keep telling myself, or the thing that I've experienced running with as a team a lot, is that you really are always alone, even when you have a teammate with you, if that makes sense. Because running is such a personal experience, and how your
yeah,
body feels and where your mind is at, even if you're next to somebody. This is a really interesting experience with Sam. We will go on the same run and both come out of it feeling completely different. Like, some runs will finish, I'll be like, oh, that was a great run, I felt great. I'm like, oh, that I was suffering that entire time. I've had a rough day. My body's not there today, or my mind isn't there. So, and even during the race, we had different highs, different lows, different experiences, even being right next to each other, doing it together. Because again, running is just such a personal experience, and it's so much about where your mind is at,
yeah,
and what you're thinking and how you're processing it, that everybody that does it in a way does it alone, or at least that's what I'm trying to tell myself. But the reality is, when you're out there in the middle of the night on a mountain, we were lost. We got lost a few times during that race. That is a different experience alone versus having someone there with you, for sure. So you can have pacers. So I have some friends that have offered. I hope they're able to make it, and some family. So hopefully, at least through the nights, have some pacers there. I think that'd make a big difference.
yeah. Definitely, definitely having pacers and just having some support there, just
Yes.
people you know.
Yeah, yeah, because when we did Moab, the only person we could get to show up for us, I think a lot of people thought we were crazy doing it, was my mom. And she showed up at mile 100. So we had already gone, pretty far when we ran into her. And it was incredible what a difference it made to have somebody at the aid station waiting for you, just knowing that someone was out there, because we didn't have any internet connection. We had no contact. You kind of just sunk into this different world. It feels like we were living a little separate lifetime out there. And when my mom showed up, it just changed everything to have someone waiting at the aid stations that you recognized and was there to help and take care of you. And um, she was actually supposed to be at mile 120. That was the original plan. That was where she was going to meet us. And we were going a little slower than we thought. It was so hot those first 2 days. It was a lot hotter than it's ever been. We had run out of water. We were like battling dehydration, moving slower than we thought we would be moving. You know, it's hard to run in 100-degree heat when you're in a canyon. So anyway, that being said, when we came into mile 100, I wasn't sure if my mom would have figured that out and come to that aid station, or if she would have stayed at 120. And when I heard her voice, it was the biggest boost to me mentally of just, my mom is here. I don't know if you've experienced that in races, but the people being out there makes a huge, huge difference.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely. As of yet, I haven't had family members out there, but yeah, just to see people, see friends, and what even friends that are in the race, but just having not seen them in the race on the course, and then running into them at the aid station, it's like, hey, what's up? Actually, yeah, friends. I remember when I ran the Rainier to Ruston Ultra, um, and there was a few friends from that were working at Fleet Feet Bonnie Lake at the time.
Okay.
And they were there at the aid station in Ording. And
okay.
Yeah, just, to give support. I remember exactly. That's where Kendra Anderson told me, Shane, don't push too hard. Listen to your body. And
yes.
That's why I ended up stopping and calling it quits at 43 and a half miles.
Okay. Oh, dang, you're close. Yeah. But yeah, you have to listen to your body.
Come to find out, I was right around the corner from the next aid station there in Fife. Which, if I'd made it there, I could have sat for a couple minutes and got back up and pushed to the end.
Right.
Because we were speed walking at that point anyway.
Okay.
And actually, that brings to mind something I was going to ask you about the Moab 240.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I know in my heart that for 4 full days, you're not going to be running the whole time.
Right.
And I'm wondering, was there, a good chunk of that? How much of it was, walking, slowing down?
Right. Yeah, and that's the other perception about ultra running that people have, is like that you go out, that it's like a marathon where you go out, you start, you run till you don't run anymore, till you're at the finish line, and then you're done. For most people, I mean, obviously there's some pros that do run, and I don't even know Moab 240. I don't even think the winners are running at all. I can't speak to that. Obviously, I'm not in that category, but the ultra distances like 100 and 200, I feel like for most runners is, especially because ultras do tend to also be in mountains where you have different terrain, you have climbs, you have technical trail, you're not just running down a sidewalk. For most runners, there's some walking or hiking or power, whatever people call it, mixed in. And the thing I actually like about those distances too is it's always about figuring out what is the most efficient way to move. Sometimes that's running, sometimes that's walking, sometimes it's hiking. There could be a moment where that's crawling. I mean, it's just about getting your body to the finish line. And so yes, for us, for Moab, we ourselves have kind of tried to put an estimate on it. We ran a very strong second half of the race. The first half we ran less than we thought. And again, that was mostly due to the heat. The heat was something that we weren't really able to train for because, being from Washington, we don't get that dry heat out here. Most of the time we're running on a trail, we're in shade, in tree cover, things like that. So we went in pretty untrained for the heat. It ended up being hotter than it had ever been. The aid stations are, those first few aid stations are 25 miles apart. And so when you add in technical trail and climbing, that's a lot of hours between aid stations. And so what we would do is we would run on the first couple days until we ran out of water. Once we ran out of water, it no longer felt safe to be running at 100 degrees or 90, or, it was just, I'm not sure exactly what the temperature was. It was kind of fluctuating in the canyon, but it was very hot. once we were out of water, we would make a decision then to walk or power hike to the next aid station until we had water again. So we ended up having more walking in the first 2 days than we originally thought we would. But we also ended up running a lot more in the second half than we thought we would. We had some sections at the end where we just straight up ran like 20 miles twice. There's a kind of a flat road section that's 13 miles, and then an aid station 13 more. Most of that was running. One of the last sections is sort of a downhill 20 some mile run to Porcupine Rim. We ran that entire thing. So we were kind of surprised at where we were running and where we were walking, but the weather kind of dictated that. I would say we ran more than half. I don't know exactly how many miles though. And there was definitely some climbing. Usually with ultramarathons, very few people run the uphill, run up a mountain. Just the energy that it would take to run up it would use all the calories that you had. You know, you're kind of operating in a calorie deficit for most of the race. So it's all about just keeping your body moving as efficiently as possible, keeping the fuel coming in, staying out of GI distress, staying out of mental distress, and just mixing up that run, walk, hike as the terrain and weather dictate. And it is interesting to see too, sometimes running feels better, sometimes walking feels better. So you try to just keep both movements available and working, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like on the that race that I met you at was the super 50 miler.
Yeah.
Super 50 miler. That one there, I, that I didn't complete that one because I had run too fast or run too far at a time.
Yeah.
And ended up walking a lot. Well, yeah, that was my problem. Started out too fast. Ended up walking a lot because my legs were hurting, and I ended up getting to the cutoff point like just a minute too late, and they're like, "Oh, sorry, can't go any further."
No.
But yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I know what you're saying about you have to gauge, your running and your walking distances, and okay, I better slow back on the running, because it's starting to hurt a bit, and
you don't want to drive yourself. Our goal with Moab was to finish, but to finish running, that was something important to us. We had read a lot of race reports, watched a ton of videos people had made, and it seemed like a lot of people would kind of run themselves into the ground to where they couldn't run anymore, and then they had to walk all the way to the finish line, which just, again, that's totally fine. That's one way to do it. It just makes that second half of the race take a long time, and I think mentally losing the ability to run makes it stressful. And so we hoped that we would retain our ability to run and walk all the way through the race, and we did. And we actually were running, quote unquote, air quote, fast at the end. My mom jumped in to pace us because she was there watching, and she couldn't even keep up with us. We just had this like excitement burst. These were probably like 8-minute miles. This wasn't like super truly fast, but to be running a real run at that mileage, we were super happy with how it turned out.
It's I think it's totally apropos that you said you were super happy. I was because what was going through my mind at that moment was running at the end of a 240.3 mile race takes like super people.
I don't know. I think everyone there, it's funny, I felt that way about everyone there. I would look around and be like, these are the most fascinating, interesting, living life to the fullest people I've ever met. But then you look at yourself and you're like, but I'm just a regular person. What am I doing here? We don't see ourselves the way others do. But I really believe, I think we're all capable of so much more than we know. I mean, that's been one of the lessons to me that I've learned through running. And I really think anyone who set their mind to that distance is